Our final guest has had a 25-year career leading businesses in a variety of industries. He's a highly experienced management executive with a record of successfully reducing costs, increasing efficiency, and stimulating bottom-line growth for startups, mid-size, and multi-million-dollar organizations. Please put your virtual hands together one last time for our final guest of BlockDown 4.0, the president of One Ledger. Please welcome George Conolly.
Good afternoon, and thank you, Chris. Thank you for that. So I'm going to jump straight in, and since I am the only thing standing between most of you and a trip to the bar, I want to get straight into what we're going to talk about today. Now, I want you to think for a minute of the biggest challenges or obstacles that there are in business, and there's probably a way that blockchain can solve it. And that's what we're here to talk about today. With blockchain, the world and the economy and the interaction that we've come to believe is normal may not return for several years without blockchain. So before I get into what that means, I want to tell you about One Ledger. Now, One Ledger is a scalable, universal, DPoS, cross-ledger protocol designed for business. We're now in mainnet. We offer high-value rewards for our staking and our validation, and we enable businesses and individuals to build applications on modularization tools that we've built, which will then communicate with the One Ledger protocol using its API interface gateway. What does that mean in simple language? We provide a platform for developers to build product on our protocol, and then we provide an easy API for that to integrate as a multi-chain, multi-platform tool. And what it is we're talking about here today is one of the biggest challenges that the world faces today, I think, as you all know, is the absolute economic decimation for a large number of our population as we attempt to grapple with COVID-19 pandemic. Like many others, we've looked at how we in a blockchain environment can sort of change this or fix this problem. Like many others, we've also surmised that the critical difference between the 1980 approaches and what we should employ today must be driven by our technology protocols and should include comprehensive testing for the virus, a validation of the test results or a vaccination as a condition of circulation in public spaces. And there also should be a safe and a reliable and inexpensive way to acquire high quality rapid tests and then have those results securely posted on a mobile device for ubiquity and utility. And then present those results in an evidence-based criteria for entry into offices, into parks, schools, colleges, restaurants, etc. And that's where we have OnePass application that we're talking about today. So there's a need for a solution. And there's a need for that solution to be able to differentiate between a fraudulent application and one that's not. So One Ledger has addressed this challenge with an end-to-end solution that, one, shares records securely and having the user in full control of that health data, levels up the supply chain management and serialization of the test or the vaccines, prevents fraud, streamlines epidemiology by comprehensive reporting, and it can even incorporate scheduling for the testing and inoculation against the virus with reminders of the second dose date if those courses have a two-phased platform, if you need 2 doses in order to have a complete virus protection. So with growing concerns over privacy, an intricate global supply chains, an infinite pool of sensitive data to manage, lots of touch points, a technical solution with the potential to address all these concerns, we would think is one of the most important innovations of the decade. And this is the application that we have here today. The One Ledger IHP, the International Health Passport, and OnePass is a blockchain evidence certificate that can be used as a travel passport. The blockchain ensures that the data is immutable, secure, cannot be tampered with, and that it's controlled by the individual. Labs and medical providers can upload test results and vaccine results, but only the owner can give access to the data, making it natively HIPAA and GDPR compliant. So we've covered both ends of the continent in terms of being able to supply a blockchain-based application that deals with this critical issue. The technology has the potential to help businesses also get back to some semblance of normalcy as people get vaccinated and workers start to return to the office. It can help organizations coordinate reentry policies and workflows by requesting and verifying that employees, contractors, and patrons meet specific site requirements before entering the facilities. So we can actually go back to Raptors games in Canada, or we can go back to Madison Square Garden to see the Knicks play. You can tell them a basketball fan. This has practical applications for education, corporations, sports, entertainment facilities, and of course, travel and transportation. Now, even without the test, if you're not adding the modalities of the test, there is an application, and many of our clients are gearing up for this, where the application is used as a single source of truth to actually validate who enters the facility. So it's used like a digital registry, having all the entrants create a valid identity profile on our app, and then maintaining a digital registry with the date and the time. And it allows for a far more effective contact tracing process than any current process that many entities have been deploying as a tool for this. So most of the tools that we've seen, you just write your name and address in a phone book as you enter the facility. And that's used for contact tracing going forward. Our system offers a completely digital-based application. One Ledger has built with this product a fit-for-purpose application for immediate download and use. It's available on the Google Store or on the Apple Store, iStore for immediate use. Our goal is to create a movement and an ecosystem that allows the citizens of the world to enjoy lives that are as close to normal as what we would have enjoyed pre-pandemic. We want verified, accurate health status data shared to ensure that we reduce risk of contraction of the pandemic, and that we also take early action to treat those amongst us who may be positive, even if asymptomatic. So in a time of fear and uncertainty, we want to bring clarity. We want to bring a single source of truth with an integrated solution that helps cities reopen safely. Every time we do this, there are several questions that come up. So basically, we're going to ask some of those difficult questions now, since we don't have questions being thrown out, and see how that plays out in terms of the audience in addressing some of those questions. Now, blockchain as an application, there are several individuals who believe that blockchain is very complex and very difficult to understand. And why will we take the risk of building any application on something that we can't understand? And our response to that is the area of focus here should be what unique characteristics does blockchain bring to the table rather than understanding blockchain itself. I use a mobile phone every day, all day, perhaps. And I certainly don't understand how it works. Neither do I understand how to build one myself. But what we all understand is the utility of the product, and we understand the functionality of the product. And that's the same approach that we want to bring to blockchain implementation and enterprise applications and solving problems of scale. We want to merely understand the intimates of the utility of the tool and leave the coding and the schema to the architects and the engineers. So what is the social science that blockchain brings to solving this problem? And can that be replicated by any other application, even if you don't understand fundamentally how to write Solidity or Go yourself? The next question is, why do I need a blockchain solution at all? Can I just use this data in a central repository, a central registry, and then have a two-factor authentication? Now, our response to that is, just because authenticators and SMS two-factor authentication are commonly used tools that make them the most secure solutions, it actually doesn't make them the more secure solutions. That appears to make them secure, they're actually not secure. Granted, for everyday consumers, these are two of the most user-friendly forms of authentication. You have to access data. But because two-factor authentication tools rely primarily on third-party providers, then it may not be the best course of action for handling healthcare data, etc. Most of these companies, because of this, several companies and countries even are trying to develop their own proprietary two-factor authentication platforms. And having multiple options of two-factor is never a bad thing. But if newly created apps can only work within a particular ecosystem, then it begs the question whether or not an alternative solution might be preferable, like a blockchain-based solution. So, for example, you can integrate completely into the platform, into the world, and remain properly decentralized and secure for verification. Blockchain innately works better than any 2FA for decentralized applications. It issues a digital token from the blockchain, which contains the personal information of the consumer. And then upon getting this token, it is the digital sign that consumer uses to log into the information. And then the user has to authenticate the process through the platform. And because every token would only be deemed valid through its private key, which is owned only by the user, then it creates a highly more effective verification platform than any 2FA could in terms of credentialing clients or credentialing consumers. The next question is this really about the government acting as a big brother, trying to force people to get vaccine or tests that they don't want? And our response to that is that we can't really speak for any government's intent. But what we do know is that in this particular situation, this is a unique one, where sharing information on health status on demand, controlled by you, the user, should not be seen as an intrusion, but as a partial assimilation for the survival of a city or a country. The next question is, what happens to seniors or others in the population who don't have a cell phone or an email? Our application has built out as part of its application that you can add dependents to the platform. So you have your own profile, you have profiles for dependents. And the state can also manage profiles that go onto the app where those individuals do not have smartphones or do not have the tools to do it themselves. So the epidemiology is still trapped, the information is still trapped and held by the state rather than the individual themselves. The next question is, this idea may take very long to implement, even with a single country, where various regional governments will have to come together to make it work. Across countries, it's been even more complicated, as Leaders will have to create common standards for it to work. Is this idea doomed to fail even before it starts? We have gone through that process ourselves where the discussion becomes very complex. And our thinking is that a solution like this has to be driven by multiple factors. We have to start small, show value through pathfinders, and then scale up. We've had engagements with governments in small countries, mind you, where we started with an audience of 4. And then we moved to 14. And one of the last engagements we had ended with an audience of 40. And it becomes more complex along the way, and there are more things that the government and the agencies want to do. And what our lesson has taught us is start small, build skill, show functionality, show value, and move up. So consequently, we don't think it's doomed to fail. We just think that we need to guide participants on how to get small parts done, add value, and then move on. So if you think about the journey that we've had for internet use, how that went, and if you think about the journey that we've had for acceptance of cryptocurrency, how that has happened, we see this journey being similar, with similar gradients, but being a lot shorter. And another question we've been asked is, should we focus on getting shots in arms rather than be worried about application? And we agree absolutely that shots in arms is a critical element. But equally critical is the epidemiology, the tracking of the information associated with the virus, and governments being able to use that information to make good decisions. And also functionality in terms of, do you want physical freedom back? And what does that mean? So if you want a negative test and you want to have inoculation from the virus, in order for us to convince the rest of the country and the rest of the world that we are in a good state and we can get back to some semblance of normalcy, our thinking is that neither of those things should be sacrificed. We need to be able to share the data in a manner that's secure. We need to be able to share it in a manner that's ubiquitous. We need to be share it in a manner that is controlled. And we need to be able to share it so that we all can make good decisions about what risk we're putting ourselves at. And that's our presentation.